My name is Bob. I'm an addict. I'm currently the regional chairperson for the Greater New York Region Public Relations, and prior to that, I was the regional delegate for the Greater New York Region. And so I'm here. You know, there's so much information. I mean, I was listening, my head was about to explode. There was so many different things, and I was feeling so intimidated because so many people are. I guess with the technology, which is a big thing, technology, but I was kind of like a stone man in some of my approach to the development of the Greater New York Regional Professionals presentation. I just want to start off say, professional presentation, I don't know how many people here know what that is or have attended one of those, but it's something that really doesn't happen that much. In the Greater New York region, definitely. Ours was the first that ever occurred there. And throughout the Northeast zone, they're not really something that's happening all the time. So a lot of people, even people that have been involved with public relations, don't really know what it is. And so just to simply describe it, most of the time in Narcotics Anonymous, you have addicts who share their experience or share information in relationship to what Narcotics Anonymous is. That's how it works most of the time. And a lot of it was sort of like this, not proactive, but this kind of thing where, like almost like the Maytag repairman kind of thing, where like NA members who were interested in public relations waited for a phone call to be asked to explain what it was about. This professionals presentation is a little bit of a different dynamic in which we look for professionals who have relationships with Narcotics Anonymous through their occupations, and in some ways their job intersects with addicts who we would like for them to steer to us. So like for me, I'm an addict. So like if an addict gets up in front of a room and says, I love Narcotics Anonymous, I'm clean 25 years, this is great, Narcotics Anonymous works, that's like a certain kind of message. But if you have somebody who is not an addict, who basically says, in my field, we utilize Narcotics Anonymous as a tool where we send people to, it's kind of like a different message. It's a message in which the person who's speaking can actually use different types of words, which could be attractive when speaking to other professionals. So when we did the thing in the Greater New York region, we had somebody from drug court, New Jersey, which was highly, you know, they had a very highly successful relationship with drug court. New York didn't. So what we tried to do was we tried to get people, okay, so this was the event, and some of the people that are in the picture are here today. But what we tried to do is we tried to get professionals who might have an ability to kind of start influencing the discussion in New York to utilize drug court, because New York City doesn't have drug court. People can get directed to NA, but it's almost like by accident. And we attempted to get people, so when we were doing this professionals presentation, we would look for people who were like into alternatives to incarceration, to get people like that into the discussion, to influence what and how people within the judicial system of New York think about addicts. So rather than, you know, addicts with nonviolent crimes and stuff like that just end up going, in New York, you go to jail and then to prison. In other places, there's an ability to send those people off on another track. And then we looked for a professional who was able to present evidence-based information to say that this type of thing works, utilizing NA. And these are the types of things, these are really high value, I would call them high value targets which NA attempts to engage in a conversation with those people about how things could be different. Like I said, in New York, nonviolent drug crime, whatever it may be, COVID might have changed things, but previously you go to jail, that's it. There was no opportunity, to officially or consistently get directed into treatment. So we would look for people in probations, the courts, medical people. We engaged people in harm reduction, all of those things. That's another thing I really liked what Vicky had to say about this thing. Like a lot of times people in NA think that engaging with people outside of the fellowship in a conversation is somehow in conflict to our principles. Well, I can tell you from day one, we've been looking to make friends of NA. And that's what it's about, friends of NA. And this thing with professionals presentation, it's kind of a complicated process because you have to do the mining and development of lists. But in New York, there's tens of thousands of people involved in occupations which have a cross section and make contact with people who could be future members of Narcotics Anonymous. Mm-hmm. And those people, like I said, probations, treatment, NYPD. So at this event that, the picture went by, we actually had a pretty good representation of people in both city government, courts, teaching institutions and things like that who attended our presentation. And, it was successful, but I mean, COVID has really changed a lot of things because now there's, the virtual world. I mean, this thing of presentations where people come and attend conferences. I mean, things have changed a lot even since, that convention happened 2 years ago. So I just want to say with everything, I just wanted to say this at the very beginning. The way big ideas happen, they start with like a seed. I just want to say that to people. Some people said things here today. It's like, oh my God, like $10,000 budget and it's 1,000 bucks. I mean, maybe it starts with a seed. So I went to something and I heard about this thing with professionals presentation, and from taking that idea, I floated it to other people, and it caught on, and we were able to do it. So there really are no small ideas or small projects in public relations, because save one life or bring one person into recovery is really what it's about. It doesn't have to be you don't have to shoot for the moon. You can start humble. And this thing that we did in New York was a big thing. It was a convention with 2,000 people. We had the presentation prior to the actual convention starting, and that's how often these things are done. And, I know people have said a lot of different things already today. There's a lot of information. In order to do a professionals presentation, you need support on the local level. And to do it at a convention, you have to have the convention committee on board. Usually you have to have people with the region on board. In the Great New York region, we had to have the board of director people. Like, you have to have people running interference for you sometimes, because not everybody is going to understand. Like, hey, Bob, what do you mean you're inviting like professionals to come down to like speak? Hey, do you know what they're going to say? Like, is this an endorsement? Is this an approval? I say, listen, just trust us. We got this. And if you get people to give you support, we can do it. And I don't know how much more I really need to say. If anybody wants to, questions or anything like that, I'll be more than happy to take them during or after the presentation.
Yeah, just take like 2 slides before, have all the steps.
Okay, all right. 2 slides before. One
more, Doug.
One more, Doug. Rock on.
Yeah, there
okay. It is. All right, create a list of professionals. In New York, it was kind of easy. First of all, Oasis had something on the internet with hundreds of contacts in the field of treatment. New York City also has this thing called the Green Book, which probably has 1,000 numbers of every sort of agency, police department, commissioner, everybody's in there. It's more information in those two things than you could possibly, mine or use. So it wasn't that difficult. Determine if live or virtual logistics or 414 breakouts, that's like at the thing. I mean, today, I feel this thing could have benefited also by breakouts, where we go into small table discussion, because there was a lot of stuff didn't really give a chance to talk to each other and kind of do things. Small table breakout at a professional presentation is very good. It brings the professionals into groups with the people, and it brings us into groups where we can give them feedback and this and that. It creates relationships. Budget associated with mailers. I mean, we did it on a shoestring budget. It wasn't a big deal. There was one big expense with the hotel, with setting up microphones and stuff like that. Create contact letter. It's important on those committees to have people who can write, because we did do numerous targeted letters, specifically speaking to certain segments of the treatment and other communities. And if you send a letter with poor grammar, misspelling, this and that, it makes us look kind of unprofessional. Determine panelists. This was another thing that was very important. We personally interviewed all the people that sat on the panel. Some of them we've already had long-term relationships with. One of the persons we didn't. We went to speak to them. We got a good feeling that, like, listen, we're not looking for an endorsement. We're not looking for an affiliation. These things to maintain the aspects of the traditions.
All right, Bob, you got 2 minutes remaining.
Register participants. So we had people, of course, definite confirmations and things like that. We developed a list, possible things. Half the people didn't show, but we still had a good turnout. Determine co-host, facilitators, materials. Our event was facilitated by World Services. So, I want to give a shout out. World Services, they rock, and they got a lot of experience with this stuff. And they came and did the PowerPoint presentation for us. And the coordinated follow-up. This is one of the most difficult parts of it, because public relations involves not just making that initial contact with people. If you contact a harm reduction place or a whole entity of harm reduction places, how do you follow up for it? So you need boots on the ground. It's not all virtual stuff. It's boots on the ground in the local committees that really make the difference, at least in my perspective. So, voila. Thanks, Brian.
Great job.
Thank you so much.
Anybody have a question? You have a question? Come on.